If you are in the process of writing your personal statement, especially if you're applying to LSE, this video is for you, and I want to talk about 5 mistakes to avoid in your personal statement if you want to make it a good and strong one. To give you a quick background overview, I studied government and economics at LSE. It was my first choice out of the 5 universities that I applied to through UCAS. I started in 2015, graduated in 2018. And a quick disclaimer, I'm no expert in this. I'm definitely not in admissions of LSE. I'm just giving you tips that I've been given myself by my teachers and people who gave me feedback on my personal statement at the time of me applying, but also some things that I know make a personal statement better that I didn't really take on board. Having said all of that, here are the 5 mistakes that I think you should avoid in your personal statement, especially when applying to LSE. Mistake number 1 is not linking 2 subjects if you're applying for a joint degree. And this was very much the case with me because I applied for government and economics, and that course exists for a reason, and the reason is the overlap between the 2 subjects. So while it's great for you to show that this subject is really interesting to you and you're well versed in it and you really want to study it, and also this other subject that you love and you want to study that as well, I think what really will distinguish you from a lot of other people is to show how these 2 overlap. And there really are so many things that you can touch on. How do they influence each other? Why should you study them together? And why you want to do this particular course which brings those 2 fields together? What happens in that overlap where those 2 areas meet? And what does it mean? Why is it interesting to look at it? Is there any sort of power dynamic between the 2 fields? Maybe you think that one is the first to influence the other, or maybe you think it's more dialectical and they actually are interconnected and developed together. Whatever the case is with your course that you're applying to, make sure to address the overlap and not just 2 separate subjects. Mistake number 2 is only talking about why you really want to get on that course and you want to study those subjects. Instead, what I think is very important to do is not to just say why you really want them being the university, the course, whatever you're applying for, but also why do they want you? And maybe I'm overthinking it, but I think that goes back to knowing your worth and that you're also bringing value to the place that you're in. And if you are a good and strong candidate and you have a lot of things to bring to the table, which I think everyone does, you need to remember that it's a 2-way street. And to be honest, that doesn't even affect as much the content of your personal statement. I think it affects the framing. So for example, if you have an achievement, it's one thing to say that, so I have this achievement, so that's why I really want you to take me, please take me. Versus, so I have this achievement and I think that means that I can bring this value to you and your course, and it would actually be really enriching for you to take me because that's the skill that I have, that's the experience I've had, and I know that it will bring value to other people studying with me. The framing is so important because the second version is just more confident. It's you knowing your worth and you knowing that you bring value that way too, and not just you, the university, bringing value to you. So keep that in mind and don't just tell them how much you want them. Mistake number 3 is being boring and very generic. And I definitely had a point in writing my personal statement where I realized that I'm being such a freaking stereotype and there are hundreds of other people saying the same things that I'm saying, and that was the point where I realized that I need to bring more of me and a bit more of my uniqueness to that piece of writing, because otherwise there's no way for them to distinguish you from other people. Examples that will hurt are if you've had excellent grades at school, if you volunteered to do something at your school, if you did Duke of Edinburgh. And hear me out, I have a lot of respect for people who actually did that because it's a lot, especially when you're studying your A-levels. And I signed up, I didn't follow through, I didn't do it, so I really admire if you've done that, but imagine how many people have also done it. And if you read the personal statement and it says that have excellent grades, volunteered, have extracurriculars, did Duke of Edinburgh, extended project thing that they offered to do, that really wouldn't give a person reading your personal statement enough information to then be able to pick you out of the crowd and say, I know that this is that person who wrote it. Because yes, you have narrowed down to maybe a smaller group of people who have done those amazing things, because they are amazing. There are achievements. You should be proud of that. But also, what will really set you apart from other people is your unique opinions, how you see things, how you interpret them. And you need to have at least a bit of that voice from you authentically in your personal statement for it to be interesting, for it to be unique, for it to be different from others. Even if you're hesitating, even if you're not sure that, oh, I don't know if that's the right way to see it, it's your way to see it. And if you can give them a bit of that, I think that will really set you apart from other people applying. Mistake number 4 is dropping in a name casually of some philosopher or some person who said something, or a book that you've read, and not explaining it. And I completely understand the reasoning behind doing it so casually, because I have done that. I've done that in my university essays. I've done that many times, because you think that, well, I know about this subject, I know about this person, I know about this quote. If I want to show how knowledgeable I am, I need to be casual about these things, because it's just such a basic thing that us in the field, we know it. But that's so not true. And in your personal statement, the person reading it doesn't know you. And all that they know is, if someone were to just Google this guy and drop it in their personal statement, they could. If someone wanted to Google this book written by this author in economics and drop her quote in, they could, because there's no way of knowing whether you actually understand what you're saying and what you're quoting unless you explain it. So even though it feels counterintuitive, and it did to me, to explain a quote that you probably think that the other person knows, the reason that you're explaining is not because you don't understand and therefore you have to simplify and communicate it, but rather it's exactly because you understand, and that's the only way to show your understanding and your interpretation and what that means for the field. That's exactly where your voice will come through, and that goes back to the previous point that I mentioned. Mistake number 5 is flaky language and diluting powerful, strong words. And I feel like a bit of a hypocrite saying this point, but I think it doesn't matter in everyday language whether you do that or not, because whatever comes naturally to you, that's your way of speaking. And my way of speaking is, I have a lot of things like, oh, that was so incredibly exciting, that was very interesting, and oh, I think it's really, really necessary to do something. I do say a lot of those things in my everyday life, but when it comes to writing, there is a reason why you have a lot of time to prepare this piece of writing. And the reason, and simultaneously the benefit of that, is you can edit it and you can make it sound strong. I think one of the ways to make it sound strong is not to dilute words that are already powerful. For example, words like essential, necessary, inspiring, important. When you say something like, yeah, it was really so inspiring to hear that talk, compare that to when you say it was inspiring to hear that talk. And I know that, yes, a lot of this comes through in the tone, and you can't hear the tone when you're reading for your personal statement, but if you can just slowly edit out things that make your strong words and make your opinions sound weaker, I think you should do that, because that will make your personal statement more confident, and it will help you to own what you're saying, as opposed to diluting it with those sprinkling words that you can just put in to make it more smooth and diplomatic. I think you should really go for what you're saying. If you're saying it's inspiring, it's inspiring. It's not, oh yeah, it was quite inspiring. Editing is a powerful tool. So take the time to edit your personal statement, make it clear, make it precise, and make it strong, and make use of the language that you have. That's all I wanted to share today. If you have any questions that I can answer in the message, please let me know. I would love to help you. If there's anything you'd like to know about LSE, about the application process, about the personal statement, I hope that it goes well. I hope your application process is not super stressful. I wish you all the best with that, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.